So if you want to get into the world of sim racing, chances are you're going to want to go and get yourself a wheel. Now, as a starting point, you're probably going to end up going for this wheel or this wheel. So as soon as I have both, let's compare the two and figure out which one might be best for you. So here we are in Assetto Corsa to put each one of these wheels through their paces. And I figured, seeing as I'm actually going to be there this weekend, why not take a touring car around my local circuit of Knock Hill? Plenty of twists and turns and lumps and bumps to test out the force feedback and really get to grips with how each one of these wheels feel. Okay, so the first wheel that we are going to take a look at today is the T150. Now this is the PlayStation version of the wheel that I have, but it has all the normal kind of face buttons that you'd expect it to have. That is the X, triangle, square and circle, your directional buttons, your L2, R2, start select and your PS home button. Obviously L1 and R1 are your shifters. It does have L3 and R3 as well, but they're positioned down on the actual wheel hub itself. I guess it's kind of useful if there's things that you kind of don't commonly use but are still kind of handy to have available. Just to put them out of the way a little bit, so you don't knock them back and leave the wheel free for more useful things. So the actual force feedback on this, it feels pretty good, to be honest. The first thing I noticed about this is that there is a bit of a kind of natural weight to the wheel. Even with no real load going through it, there is a bit of kind of stiffness to it, which is nice, it's reassuring. And the reason for this is that there is a belt and gear driven system in here. It's a combined system, which is good in that all of the force feedback information feels quite smooth. The only problem is that it can feel a bit sluggish, shall we say. Sometimes things seem to take a little while to kind of ramp up in strength, and I think that's probably just because there's a little bit more kind of internal resistance going on with this. Now, the wheel itself actually feels really high quality. There's not like some cheap rubbish plastic on here. It is actually a really solid construction. The same cannot be said for this, the pedals, however. The pedals feel really flimsy and cheap. And having had this for a while, I've had to replace the springs in the pedals for this as they broke on me, which sent me careering into a wall with nothing I could do about it. But yeah, the pedals are the big thing that kind of let this down. There's not a lot of feel in the pedals. There's not a great amount of resistance or anything like that there. They're just very much there just to be a means of getting an input into the game, which is a little bit disappointing given how good the actual hub itself feels. So, on to the Logitech G29. Just as before with the Thrustmaster, this has all the buttons you'd expect it to have on the front, but it has a few extra things as well. There is a little rotary switch with a little, I guess, confirm button in the centre, which is very handy for setting things like your brake balance and such like. There's also a little plus and minus button on there, which I guess could be useful for setting the likes of traction control or something else that you could increase in increments. One of my main reasons for trying to upgrade to the G29 though was the pedals. As we discussed with the Thrustmaster one, the pedals really weren't up to all that much, whereas the Logitech one not only has an extra pedal, as we now have a clutch, they're also a much better construction, as we have fully metal pedals. Fair enough, the base is still plastic, but they feel a lot better, a lot more rigid. The brake actually has this little kind of rubber stopper in it, so when you go to put on the brake, you have to really give it some welly to get your full braking potential out of there. I know some people won't like this, but it is something that you can modify out. If you open it up, you can take the rubber stopper out. It's not a big deal. I think it's a nice idea. I think you could have done with being a little bit softer, just so it feels a little bit more progressive. But once you get used to it, it's not that bad. Key things I would say in terms of differences between these two. The steering feels a lot lighter. The force feedback's a lot more immediate, but it's also a little bit rougher, shall we say. It's a little bit more clanky. It feels very immediate. The pedals, though, are a marked improvement over the last one.
So there you have it, guys. My thoughts on the Logitech G29 and the Thrustmaster T150. Both great little wheels to get yourself started into sim racing. Now there's positives and negatives for both wheels, so let's get started with the T150. One of the best things about this has to be its force feedback and just general feeling when you're using it. It's nice and smooth, it's very pleasant to use, and very informative as well. That, coupled with the fact that it's nice and quiet by comparison to the G29, is definitely a positive thing. Unfortunately, the lack of buttons on the actual wheel face itself, coupled with the fact that the pedals are definitely lacking when it comes to quality, kind of let it down just a little bit. The G29, on the other hand, has excellent pedals, really sturdy and durable. The little rubber stopper that's in there can be removed if people don't like the feel of it, but it is nice to have that kind of closer to real life emulation going on there. The buttons and the functionality on the wheel face as well are fantastic. The only thing that kind of lets this down, unfortunately, is its force feedback and just general feeling. It's just a little bit lighter. It's not quite as informative when you're using it. But either one, if you're getting started out, you can get used to very quickly and will serve you well. Anyway, that's all we have time for in this video. So if you've liked the video, please do give it a little thumbs up. If you want to see more, give me a subscribe and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.